Everybody wants a good ROI on their land investment. This property that I'm walking on now, I looked up in the tax record, and this thing has doubled in value in the last 5 years. And that it was purchased before COVID, so it wasn't that COVID bump. Well, I guess that was part of it, but that's what you're looking for when you're trying to buy a property. What is that ROI going to look like long term? Whether you're going to keep it, pass it on to your kids, or you're looking to buy land just as an investment. You need to have that exit strategy. We've talked about that before, but on this video, let's talk about what are the best states, the 10 best states for the highest ROI on land investment. Coming in at number 10 is Michigan. Now, Michigan's average price per acre is about $5,700 an acre. Median investment in a land purchase is about $35,000, but the thing that puts Michigan on this list is it has a return of a little over 3%, about 3.2% on average every year. That's a really, really good land investment. Now, you may not have thought about moving to Michigan or buying land in Michigan, so why do people want to move there? What's driving this cost of land? Well, first of all, you've got a lot of different landscapes. I mean, you got a ton of water. You got cities you can get in the rural areas. There's a lot of different facets to Michigan that are attractive. And one of the biggest ones, especially for me, is right now we're seeing a huge movement in Michigan towards more recreational land, getting out, people that are hunting, like I mentioned with all the water, a lot of fishing, ATV, stuff like that, hiking. And so that's one of the other things that's driving Michigan right now. But number 10 for ROI on your land is Michigan. Number 9 on the list is Indiana. Indiana's coming in at about $63,000 an acre on average. And for a land purchase, the median purchase price right now is about $45,000. So again, as we get into this list, you're going to find that the land's not all that expensive. For a purchase of 45 grand, that's not bad. The great thing about Indiana, and this number is going to continue to go up, but what it's showing is a 4.1% ROI year over year. Guys, that's approaching where you would get if you had your money in bonds. That's one of the reasons, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but that's one of the reasons that so many people are actually buying raw land right now, is because it's a really, really good investment opportunity. So if you hadn't thought about Indiana before, why are people moving to Indiana? Well, one of the first things is Indiana's got a really good cost of living, a low cost of living. When you compare it to getting on the coast, the East Coast or the West Coast, Indiana cost of living is really, really low. There's also the metro areas are starting to expand a little bit. There's more and more going on in Indiana, more people moving there. And then the last thing is, if this is what you want, Indiana has a huge agricultural sector. So if you're thinking about buying a large piece of land, going and doing some farming or ranching, Indiana is a really good option. And again, 4.1% ROI year over year. If you buy a larger piece of land, farm it for a little while, you're going to get a good return on your investment in addition to the money that you're going to make farming along the way. So that's why Indiana is number 9. Number 8, one of my personal favorites, is Colorado. Now, Colorado's average price per acre of land is just under $3,200 an acre. Now, that's really, really low, but what you've got to remember is Colorado's got a couple of different types of land. They have the farm and ranch land. That's not necessarily the really pretty areas where people want to be. That's that mountain land, and that's a little bit higher, but on average, just under $3,200 an acre. That median land purchase price is just under $100,000 an acre. So you can imagine if average is about $3,200, most people are buying large tracts of land in Colorado. Now, again, the whole thing about this video is ROI. Colorado's ROI year over year, 5.7%. Okay, now we've gone to the point where we are beyond putting your money in a bond. ROI on 5.7%. This is a solid investment. Even if you just want to buy land just for a place to put your cash, to hold on to it, Colorado's a really, really good opportunity for that. Now, as far as why people are moving to Colorado, you probably don't need to be told, but the first one is absolute beautiful surroundings. I mean, once you get up into the mountains, and even if you're out of the mountains in the plains, just being able to wake up in the morning and look at the mountains is incredible. And with the incredible beauty there's a huge growing demand for the ability to get away to the mountains. So a lot of this land is being purchased and then broken into smaller pieces so that people that live in places like Denver or Colorado Springs can get out into the mountains on weekends and stuff and enjoy that. So a little bit of a town and country lifestyle. Then the other thing that's really making a huge push in Colorado right now is sustainable living. There's a lot of properties that are termed off-grid properties. There's no electric to them. There's no water to, no city water. So people are digging wells, or they're having cisterns put in, solar panels, gas, stuff like that, and they're living completely off grid. So that's a huge movement in Colorado, and that's one of the things that's driving that ROI right now. Because Colorado has so much sunshine, you can put in those solar panels and you can actually live off grid. I won't say easily, but a little easier than some other places. So again, that's one of the reasons Colorado comes inside of our top 10. Now, before I move on, I just mentioned Colorado. Keep in mind, guys, I'm in Texas. I have 3 realtors in Colorado that are constantly looking for land. That's one of the places I've identified, in addition to a couple of other states that I'm personally looking in. If you don't have connections in a state where you think you would like to buy land, let me know. That's what I'm here for. Because I look so much at land and investment opportunities in other states, I've got those connections both with realtors and lenders and stuff like that, contractors as well. So if you're looking to do something in another state and you really don't know where to start, reach out to me, let me know. I can definitely put you in contact with somebody that can help. That brings us to number 7 on our list, working our way up or down, however you want to phrase it. South Carolina. South Carolina has not made it into any of my lists yet, and it's been kind of crazy because I figured it would at some point. South Carolina is absolutely beautiful. Love, love, love South Carolina. Land per acre average is about $3,800, and the median price is right around $39,000 for a land purchase. The ROI in South Carolina, and again, with land being that cheap, this is kind of crazy, but the ROI there is about 4.7%. Again, we're up in the range where instead of putting your money into a bond with a local bank, now granted those are short term, you have access to the money, but it makes as much sense or more sense to put that money into land. Now, if you've never been to South Carolina, what you may not know is you've got investment opportunities both inland and, there's a lot of forest land, and you can invest in land that could actually be logged. You also have coastal opportunities along the East Coast, obviously, and Charleston's an incredible area, but you have a lot of options in terms of what type of land you can invest in. South Carolina is also one of those areas that's seeing a population growth. We've got people that are moving down the East Coast towards Florida, and South Carolina is one of the options for them to stop in because the cost of land and overall cost of living in South Carolina is pretty cheap still. And then again, I keep going back to this because when you're buying land, a lot of times you're looking for agricultural opportunities. South Carolina has a great opportunity for, and climate for ranching and for agriculture. Now, ranching might be a little bit more difficult because there is so much forested area. So, maybe you have to buy a piece of property, remove the trees if you want to ranch. But just in terms of agricultural land, really, really good opportunities in South Carolina. Again, South Carolina is number 7 on our list. Keep it on moving on. Number 6 is Alabama. Now, Alabama's not going to have as high of a return. ROI is about 3.7% a year. But the reason it's so high on our list is because the cheap cost of land averages about $2,700 an acre, and the median land purchase in Alabama last year was about $27,000. So that's telling you most of that land is coming in somewhere around 10 acres, call it 5 to 20 acres. With that 3.7% ROI, what's driving it? Why are people going to Alabama? Well, number one is, like I just told you, at $2,700 an acre, the land is cheap. You've got really, really low cost of entry for making an investment in Alabama. Also, you've got a huge, just diverse landscape. You've got everything from, we'll call it mountains. It's definitely not the Rocky Mountains, but there are mountains in Alabama on the very western edge. But also from that all the way through plains, a lot of agricultural land, and all the way to the coast. So you have coast investment as well. So you can find almost any type of climate that you're looking for in Alabama. Unless you want dry, you're not going to find dry in Alabama. But as long as you're okay with humidity, just about anything else you can find there. And like most of the other states on this list, that growing interest in rural opportunities is driving this. Look, people are starting to make a conscious effort, just like I did, just like you're probably doing, of getting out of the big areas, getting out of major metros and going to a little bit of land, or just trying to get away from people. So that's another thing that's driving Alabama, and that's another reason why it's number 6 on our list. Number 5 on our list in the same part of the country is Georgia. And much like Alabama, one of the main things about Georgia is low barrier to entry. About $3,200 per acre on average, and a median price of entry for land purchases at $35,000. And a lot like Alabama, it's not our highest ROI, but still a good solid ROI when you take into account the barrier of entry. 4.3%. Again, we're right there where CDs are right now. And so at a 4.3% ROI, if you can find other ways to cash flow on the land, makes sense that Georgia is a really, really good opportunity for investment right now. And again, much like Alabama, because they're right there next to each other, the reasons people are going to Georgia are very, very similar. First of all, you have a really strong agricultural sector. That southeast part of the United States gets a lot of rain. There's a lot of opportunity to grow crops there. You also have that huge diversity in environment. You can get from the mountains, again, the Appalachian Mountains, Appalachian, not even sure how to say it, mostly because I'm not from the southeast. But anyway, the Appalachian Mountains all the way down to the coast, you have just about any type of environment that you want, again, as long as you're not looking for a dry environment. And then again, the other thing that's driving it is people trying to get out of that urban environment into more of a rural environment. Again, when you've got, I don't know if you've ever driven through Alabama or Georgia or the Southeast at all, but when you're driving through, it's not like driving through the Midwest. Everybody talks about, oh, it's the plains, it's flat, and it is. But when you're driving through there, talk about being able to escape. I mean, I'm in trees right now that are probably 20 or 30 foot tall, and these would be saplings in Alabama. So when you get out there, people are trying to escape a little bit, get into a little bit of their own preserve or their own habitat where they're not having to look at people and hear a bunch of noise. That's one of the other things that's driving things in Alabama. That's why it's number 5. Number 4 on our list is Arizona. That's a little bit shocking to me, but Arizona has pretty much the best numbers across the board. Now, the barrier to entry is a little bit higher, but overall, really, really solid. Average cost of land there per acre is about $4,300. The median value on a land purchase is about $50,000. But here's the kicker. Guys, this is the biggest number in the group. Average ROI over the last year is over 6%, 6.2%. You can't get anywhere near that in the bond market. And again, I go back to this. The whole point behind this is ROI. People are pulling their cash out, trying to make safe investments, and they're putting it into bonds. Well, that's great, and you have some access to that at some point, but if you're looking to put your money somewhere for an investment, I mean, look, Bill Gates is doing it, Warren Buffett's done it forever. Buying land, pretty damn smart, and at 6.2% average ROI, okay, Arizona might be a really, really good option for you. But why is Arizona seeing that surge in the ROI? Well, number one, you've got a lot of people now that are trying to get more to a dry climate, a desert climate. As people get older, by the way, that's one of the other reasons people are moving there. Arizona's a huge draw for retirees. But a lot of times as people get older, and I was just talking to a client about this the other day, they want a little bit of a drier climate. In Texas here, we go back and forth between dry and wet, and you've got all the allergies and stuff. And I know that they've got allergens out in Arizona, but when the climate is much drier, it's a lot easier on your lungs. So that's driving it, in addition to the retirees going out there. And then one of the other major things is, I don't know if you've noticed, but over the last few years, we've made this giant push towards sustainable energy. Well, one of the things that Arizona has plenty of is sunlight. And so what we're seeing is people buying larger pieces of land out there because there's a lot of electrical infrastructure and putting in solar farms and things like that. So if you're looking for an investment that will actually make money in addition to the ROI, maybe going to Arizona and buying a little solar farm or buying a farm to put solar panels on could be a pretty good opportunity for you. But again, 6.2%, man, that's a great ROI. That's why Arizona's number 4. Now, number 3, my home state of Texas. Now, Texas is huge, we know that, and there is a huge variety of land. So when you hear this average cost per acre, don't get too excited, but the average in Texas, like Colorado, about $3,700 an acre. But I mean, right now, if you're in Central Texas where I am, if you can find land less than $10,000 an acre, you're getting lucky. And a lot of it is pushing $20,000 and $25,000 an acre around the Austin area. But on average, Texas really, really low, a little over $3,700 an acre. The median is also pretty low. Median's at $45,000 per land purchase. So again, barrier of entry is pretty low in Texas, but you're going to have to be in the right place in Texas to find that. But the ROI in Texas is really, really good. Pretty much wherever you go, averages 5.4% per year. Again, way above bond levels, and one of the other reasons that makes Texas so appealing to people when they're looking to make investments. So why are people moving to Texas? Well, number one is we've got a huge diversity in terms of what type of land. You can have desert out in West Texas. You can have the most humid, sultry stuff that you want if you want to be in that Houston or Southeast Texas area. We kind of got our own little version of mountains, the Davis Mountains. I wouldn't call them mountains, but they do. So there's just a lot, and then you've got the coast also, right? So you've got a lot of water. So there's a huge diversity in the types of land that you have access to. One of the other things that's really, really, really appealing for a lot of people is we don't have a state income tax here. And yes, our property taxes are a little bit higher than other states, but overall, we are still one of the lowest cost of living states that there is out of the 50. In fact, I believe we're in bottom 15 in terms of the lowest cost, or maybe that would be the top 15. Anyway, our cost of living is lower than most of the other states. And then the other reason that people are coming here is we're having a massive, massive influx of businesses coming in. So we've got strong economic outlook. We still are getting businesses from all over the world that are coming into Texas on a regular basis. So those are some of the reasons that people are moving to Texas. And again, low barrier to entry, low cost, and a high ROI. That's why Texas is number 3 on this list. All right, top 2 now. Number 2, first of all, there is not a bunch of cheap land here. All right, number 2 is Florida, and the average cost per acre is about $29,000. Now, that's a lot higher than everything else on our list, but even though Florida is relatively big, there's a lot of land that's lost to, well, we'll just call it the environment, right? There's a lot of water, a lot of swamps, a lot of things like that. So there's not a bunch of available land. But even though the average cost is high at about $29,000, the median price of a land purchase is only about $79,000. So, you can tell people are buying a lot of 2, 3, 4 acre pieces of property when those two numbers are so close to each other. But again, just because that price per acre is high doesn't mean that it's necessarily unaffordable to buy land in Florida. Now, the ROI, again, is the whole reason that we're here. Even if you have to make a little bit bigger investment, ROI in Florida is 5.8%. Again, we're seeing a theme here with these north of 5% ROIs. So Florida is, again, a great investment opportunity for most people. So what's driving this movement to Florida? Well, first of all, we have a lot of population moving down there. It started during COVID. People are leaving the colder states up on the eastern seaboard, but they want to stay close. Florida's kind of that spot, right? Florida is also really, really strong with retirees. You probably know that. So just in terms of population growth, that's one of the things that's driving that ROI. And in Florida, there's not only a draw for suburban land, around cities and stuff like that, but also that little bit more rural property. And one of the interesting things about Florida is if you've never been there, you have quite a few urban areas that are within pretty close proximity. So even if you wanted to be more rural, you're still going to be close to amenities. Again, if this is a retirement thing that you're looking at, you're still going to be fairly close to hospitals and restaurants and things like that, even if you are out in a rural area. And then again, right now, it's a big push all across the Southeast, and it comes up in almost every one of my videos, is that desire for agriculture. Florida, again, you're not going to have a lot of freezes that are going to kill crops and stuff. That's why that's one of the major areas for our citrus crops is down there. But agriculture right now is becoming a really, really big thing. They're talking about how agriculture is going to, and large land purchases because of agriculture, are going to drive the biggest transfer of wealth in our nation's history. So Florida's right in the middle of that because of the availability of agricultural land and the environment that makes it feasible. So again, all of these things, in addition to that 5.8% ROI, is one of the reasons Florida is way up as high as it is at number 2. And like Florida, number one is not necessarily on a per acre basis very cheap, about $58,000 an acre on average, okay? But again, like Florida, the land there are a little bit smaller parcels, so that barrier to entry is a little bit less. Much like Florida at number two, number one does not have a very cheap per acre land price. We're talking about $58,000 an acre, but the median land purchase price is $85,000. So you know that the lots are a little bit smaller, and that's one of the reasons that it's still affordable to buy land in Delaware. Delaware's our number one, and I'm going to tell you, before I started doing these videos, I never really thought about Delaware, but it keeps popping up over and over and over as a great place to invest in land. The ROI in Delaware, 4.7% annually. Now, not the highest, but again, when you put into account what it costs to live there, and what I think is the major overriding factor there is that there's just not all that much land available. Contrast that with Texas, where it's so big. Okay, Delaware's pretty small. So that's one of the reasons that ROI is as high as it is and could have the potential to go up in the future. In addition to Delaware being small, some of the things that are driving people there, one of them, it's a great location. If you don't need warm weather necessarily all the time, on the East Coast, really easy to get around, proximity to large metros, obviously. So the location for Delaware is a really, really good location. And then we've seen this over and over, but the growing interest in rural properties and the growing interest in agriculture and just getting away from major metro areas is another thing that's making Delaware stand out quite a bit right now. And then one of the other things is, if you want to open a business, even in your retirement, Delaware has a really, really friendly business environment, so that's making it grow a little bit faster as well. And just a reminder, as you're going through this, if I've opened your eyes to any areas that you do not have contacts in, let me know. That's what I'm here for. I can put you in contact with the people in those local areas that can give you the absolutely nitty-gritty, on the ground, what you need to know if you're buying that property in that state that you just don't know too much about. All right, we'll see you on the next video.